I have worked the overnight shift on the 3rd floor of Mercy General for 6 years, and there is one rule the day staff never has to think about. On nights, you do not turn off the light in room 9. The charge nurse told me this on my very first shift, the way you would mention where the coffee is kept. Leave the light on in 9. If a patient asks to be moved there, find them another bed. And if the call button in 9 goes off, you answer it, but you do not go in alone. I laughed, because I thought she was hazing me. She did not laugh. She had been on nights for 19 years, and she had the flat, patient eyes of someone who has stopped trying to explain things to people who have not seen them yet. Room 9 sits at the end of the West Hall, past the supply closet, in a part of the floor that always feels a few degrees colder than the rest. For my first month, it was empty. The bed was made, the light was on, and every time I passed it on my rounds, I felt the small animal part of my brain want to walk faster. I told myself that was just the story getting to me. Then one night in November, around 3 in the morning, the call button for room 9 lit up at the nurse's station. The little light blinked, and the soft chime sounded, the same as any other room. Except room 9 was empty. I had checked it myself an hour earlier. I sat there staring at that blinking light, and I remembered the rule. Answer it, but do not go in alone. My coworker that night was an older nurse named Dolores, and when she saw the light, she did not say a word. She just stood up, and she nodded at me to come with her, and we walked down the West Hall together. The chime kept sounding the whole way, patient, steady, like someone pressing the button once every few seconds. Waiting. When we reached the door, Dolores knocked, which I thought was insane, knocking on the door of an empty room. Then she opened it. The bed was empty. The light was on. But the call button, the little corded remote that should have been hanging on the rail, was lying in the center of the mattress, and the indentation around it was deep, as though something heavy were resting there, pressing the button over and over that I could not see. Dolores walked in, picked up the remote, and hung it back on the rail. She said, in a normal voice, "Not to me, we know you are still here. We are not going to move anyone into your room." And the chiming stopped. On the walk back, she finally explained. In 1971, there was a fire on the 3rd floor, in the room at the end of the West Hall, before they renumbered everything. One patient did not make it out. He had pressed his call button the whole time, and no one came, because the nurses were evacuating the other end of the floor and the wiring had shorted and the light over his door never lit up. He died waiting for someone to answer. When they rebuilt the floor, they made that room number 9, and they gave it a light that stays on, and a rule that you always answer, because the one thing that man needed, the one thing he did not get, was for somebody to come when he called. So we answer. Every time. We do not move patients in because the room is already occupied, and it has been for 50 years, by someone who is simply waiting to be told he is not alone. I have answered the call from room 9 maybe a dozen times since. It is always around 3 in the morning. It is always the remote in the center of the empty bed. And every time I do what Dolores taught me. I walk down with another nurse, I knock, I open the door, and I say out loud that we heard him, that someone came, that he can rest. Most nights, the chiming stops right away. But last week, when I opened the door and said the words, the chiming did not stop. Instead, from the empty bed, in a voice like dry paper, something answered me. Said thank you. And then it said, but I am not the one who has been calling you. I have not worked up the courage to ask what that means. All I know is that the light in room 9 burned out 2 days ago, and no matter how many times we replace the bulb, by the next night it is dark again. And the call button has started going off on the other rooms now. The occupied ones. The ones with living patients in them, who swear, every single time, that they never touched it.